I've always taken a lot of kind of pride in my genealogy. You know, I'm Scott-Irish, and so I've looked up our last name, our surname, and researched it and checked out our blood connections in terms of where we hail from in terms of my name. Like, we're Scott-Irish on one side, we're Indian English on the other side, and a bunch of other mixed up stuff in between. And we know that DNA is a big deal these days, and there's companies who'll tell you where your genealogy is from, and people enjoy this stuff. I enjoyed it. It helps us stay connected somehow. We feel anchored in time. We look to qualities that our family trend has trended, and we think, yeah, that's me. That's and sometimes it's good things, and sometimes it's not so good things. Sometimes it's like, wow, we were brave. We're a brave people. We're a warrior people. And sometimes, it's like, wow, my ancestors were treasonous. So, I've got a tattoo on my arm that is our family crest. And our motto, which is confido, which means I trust. So these things have always been of interest to me, and evidently a lot of people. But today when I was reading in the Bible about how Jesus, and he does this in multiple places where he says he comes from the Father. And I realized, I guess this morning as I get into the truck, I realized that my DNA is different. Like him, I've been born from above. I have a new DNA, a spiritual DNA. I don't know that it does away with my natural DNA. I mean, when I became a Christian, my nose didn't shorten, and my eyes didn't turn a different color, or things like that. But what did happen is that all of that genealogy inside has changed. Suddenly, I find myself identifying with Israel. I find myself identifying with Jacob and Isaac and Joseph and Moses and Isaiah. I identify with them because they were men of God. I identify with Enoch and, all of these men of God. And I understand. I look at these qualities in them and I think those are qualities that I can possess because they come from our root. They're qualities in our DNA. They're in our root. Some people won't understand you when you talk about the Lord. They won't understand not only what you say, but why you would say it or where you're going with it and your intent, and they won't understand. But in the same way that somebody may come up to me and start speaking Gaelic, I wouldn't understand. But I might understand why they would talk that way if I knew that they were Scottish. Well, that's the most we can hope that people understand. The most we can hope is that they do understand what we say and why we say it, and come to the kingdom of God. But if you're not of this DNA, then you may not understand. And the most we could hope for would be that they would at least know that our intent is there. A lot of people didn't understand what Jesus had to say when he said things. They didn't know where he was coming from. Some of them went on to become disciples. Some of them were disciples. But some of them got really upset and angry with him, wanted to kill him, because they didn't understand why he said what he said, what his purpose was, what his point was, and they misinterpreted his motives. But he knew. He knew. Jesus knew. And he even told us, he said, look at my, he said, you can judge these things by using your head and your heart. And sometimes I think we have to do that. We have to judge with our head and our heart together, united. Anyway, all of this just to say, and that is all of this just to say, that you have a new DNA, you have a new family lineage if you are born again. And it's a very wonderful one. It's very filled. It's filled with adventure and excitement and bravery and hope and love and dedication and loyalty. And I tell you, I don't know what your genealogy is, but it's not going to be any bigger or better than that of being in the family of God.